Jinkies! You mean you can transport objects from the real world into the computer world?
Scooby-Doo and the Cyber Chase is a 2001 animated film that finishes the Aerial Monsters quadrilogy. It was directed by Colette Sunderman and written by Mark Turzoff. The film is focused around a computer virus that has been transmitted into the real world by some magic technology and the gang's attempts to capture him. Eventually the tables are turned and they're warped into a video game, forced to finish its 10 levels to escape, but while they're inside, all of the virtual danger is real. The production of the film was unfortunately marred by executive meddling, similar to The Witch's Ghost. The reason this is the last of the 4 films is not because the creative team had run out of ideas, but they'd grown so tired of the higher-ups they decided to part ways. Taraz's script was one of the main points of contention, as he was an external contractor, not part of the group that had worked together for the last few years. He also had little experience in animation, and his ideas were overscoped and difficult to animate. In addition, they claimed that the script was not only poor quality, a regression for characters in the franchise, but poorly formatted with camera movements that would be difficult and expensive to animate, telling of his inexperience. The clearest example of this is in the sheer number of levels in the game world, with 10 different locales. While over half are relegated to a montage, there are complicated backgrounds for the other 4, including an enormous location for the third act. The film itself struggles in a few areas. One of the biggest ones is pacing, but the animation is also noticeably lower quality than the other films, the comedy is less effective, and the mystery is obvious even for the franchise. There is a very delicate balance for any film, but especially an animated kids film, when it comes to excitement. There should be peaks and valleys, but knowing when and where to put those is a delicate art. The film starts off strong, with a solid inciting incident involving the Phantom Virus, the villain of the film. This is the moodiest scene, and is actually very well done. It then jump cuts, in the middle of the action, to the gang driving to the college campus where the majority of the film takes place. The college is implied to be a version of MIT, although it's merely State University on external signs. The gang encounters a surly security officer, then find their way to their destination. They are then told about the events with the virus, concluding the scene, but it feels very disconnected. As a side note, if you know anything about programming, video games, or science, it's best to leave those at the door, as they're a detriment to watching the film. While there's some technobabble to explain things, it's basically magic. Speaking of that, there's not technically any supernatural elements to this one, aside from the ability to apparently manifest any object through technology, like it's Star Trek. Just those magic programmers. At about the 20-minute mark, the real meat of the film begins, as the gang are transported into the video game and have to deal with various obstacles. The levels are varied, but confusing. It's said the game is based on the exploits of Mystery Inc. when they were in high school, but the actual locales are a random smattering of video game locations including the moon, prehistoric Earth, and feudal Japan. I'm not sure what a bunch of mystery solvers are supposed to be doing in any of these places, but to be fair, it was the early 2000s, and video games were often very strange. The film basically comes to a halt when the gang arrive in the prehistoric jungle, however, as they just sort of wander around, sitting in a cave and making fire for a while. The objective in every level is to get the Scooby Snacks, but all the momentum is killed as they are confused and lost. It's then revealed there's a volcano, and that's their goal, but this whole sequence would have flowed much better if the volcano had already started erupting, and they had to deal with that immediately. After that, a montage handles the remainder of the levels until they get to the final one, and that's where things pick up, at least relatively. The last half hour or so is set in an alternative modern-day Earth, where the gang encounters cyber duplicates based on their original 70s designs. It's a neat concept, and the cyber versions have this little bit of reverb to their dialogue, which is a nice touch. They eventually decide to head to the amusement park, where the final confrontation takes place. When they get there, however, they're confronted by villains from their past, mostly Season 3 of Where Are You?, with a couple from other sources. They deal with the monsters, over and over, which again is a pacing thing, as it feels like no actual progress is being made, when finally they go and confront the virus in the arcade. The final fight is fine, most of the gang hiding while Scooby actually saves the day, but that's par for the course. Then they are back in the real world and discover the human villain behind everything is one of the 3 possible suspects, specifically the one who likes baseball. The Phantom Virus mentions it like a dozen times. There's a batting cage and a baseball diamond, and he throws pitches. There's a single clue for the mystery repeated over and over. It also doesn't make a lot of sense, as there'd be no reason for Bill to have programmed in all the baseball stuff, or the baseball stuff to be in the video game in the first place. But hey, it's Scooby-Doo and nothing matters, right? There's this sort of attitude towards children entertainment where logic doesn't matter as long as there's bright colors and half a moral, but there's no reason to have such low expectations. Some of the Scooby-Doo films are fantastic stories, innovative and dark, while maintaining a farcical tone. Cyberchase just doesn't have that. It's designed by committee, as the market research indicated that kids like video games, so that's what the film was based on. The script similarly just crams in a bunch of ideas without any particular theme. Kids like dinosaurs, right? And samurai? And ancient Rome? The dinosaur bit also has one of the most egregious cases of animation reuse. I mean, at least in the modern films. There's also a very odd after-credits scene where the characters talk about the events of the film as if they were actors in a film. So they talk about filming scenes in the prehistoric jungles. It's quite strange and quite long. It's about 5 minutes. And it feels like that energy and animation effort could be better spent on enhancing the film itself, rather than this odd side thing. The film is not terrible, but it's uninspired and lacks real drive. The third act is by far the best feature, but it takes too long to get there, and even the good ideas peter out and feel repetitive. Placing it on the tier list, which has slightly new and improved graphics, it's in the C tier, just above Curse of the 13th Ghost. I hope you've enjoyed this review. Let me know what your thoughts are about the whole quadrilogy, and be well.